Welcome to English Country Life. Here in our small holding we breed these beautiful large fowl Buff Orpington hens. Now if you're in the market to buy some chickens for yourself, today's video is for you because we're going to be giving you hints and tips to make sure you get good quality, healthy chickens. Welcome, my name's Fiona and this little lady is one of the Buff Orpington hens which we have bred and has been hatched for us by Taffy, one of our broody hens this year. Now she is absolutely gorgeous, she's so well behaved and we have trained all of our young hens to be human friendly, and as you can see she's very happy to actually sit in my arms. In today's video what we're going to be doing is going through the various things to think about if you're looking to buy chickens. So we'll look at where you can buy, we'll have a chat about the different questions that you could ask of the seller, and those are designed not so you get specific answers but so you can get an idea on whether these are the sellers that you want to buy from, and of course all of these decisions are yours. We're going to be talking about what to take with you on the day to pick up your chickens, and of course we'll be looking at the health checks to carry out when you see the chickens for the first time, so you can ensure that you're taking home the best possible healthy hens. But let's get started and look at where to buy. So where can you buy your chickens from? Well, there's three main areas that you can buy them from. The first are the large commercial operations. So these are organisations which are basically profitable. So they are hatching, raising and then selling on their chickens to make a profit. The second are the resellers, because actually the commercial hatcheries don't always sell direct to the general public. So it may be that they're selling on to a retailer who's taking in the stock at a certain age and then selling it on as quickly as they possibly can. And then the third are people like ourselves, so smallholders, homesteaders who essentially have a small number of chickens, breeding a few, and then what we're doing is selling on any excess stock to help contribute towards or cover the feed bills and any capital infrastructure costs. And which is best? Well, it has to be said there's good and bad in all three categories, so it pays to do your research. If the organisation, whether that's the commercial hatchery, the retailer or the smallholder homesteader like ourselves, has a website, have a look there. What you're looking for is good conditions for hatching and raising those chickens. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be outside like we have, it may be inside, but what you're looking for is clean, hygienic conditions and no overcrowding. You're also looking to see what is the chicken doing. Are they cowering in a corner away from the camera, or are they actually engaged and wanting to come towards the camera? Does it look like they've got an energy about them, or are they carrying away and don't look particularly well? The next thing to do is have a look at reviews, and if possible have a look to see independent reviews for previous customers who've taken chickens home from that organisation. Now for the retailer, reseller, this is the most important because it may be quite difficult to get information on the commercial hatchery with the retailer initially bought the chickens. So what you're looking for there is, are there any customers who've taken those chickens home who've been unhappy with the health of their chicken? Have they reported that those chickens have got some kind of mite or pest on them? Have they reported that they've had some kind of illness almost immediately? Those are the things you want to check for. Now if most of the customers say loved it, fantastic, great customer service, chickens are healthy, absolutely love them, that it may be worth pursuing. But those are the first things to look for. Next thing, let's have a chat about the questions you can ask just to set your mind at rest. So you've decided where you're going to buy your chicks from. So what should you be asking when you call them up? Well, the first thing is, what's the genetics actually involved in raising your chicks? Is an unrelated cockerel actually used to create the fertilised eggs that your chick was hatched from? Because the more inbreeding there is, the more generational inbreeding there is, the higher the chances are of genetic issues for your chicken going forward. And what you're actually looking for is an unrelated cockerel used with hens each time. So there isn't father breeding with daughter or brother breeding with sister. Now, the second thing to ask about are some basic health questions. So the first thing is around the biosecurity. Now, they may ask you without prompting to come in clean footwear and clean laundered clothes. They may also ask you if you already have chickens, because it's possible that when you turn up on site, they will ask you to scrub your boots in a weak solution of something like Jay's fluid, just to make sure that you're not bringing any disease in. Now, it's possible they'll just ask you to come in new footwear and cleanly laundered clothes, but we also do the whole foot scrub thing too. We just want to make sure that our chickens are the healthiest. You might want to ask about worming as well as a health aspect. Now, some youngsters, worming really shouldn't be carried out until the youngsters are around 16 weeks old. So if they're younger than that, the likelihood is they haven't been wormed. So you may need to be prepared to administer some wormer like Flubenvet when they get to 16 weeks old, just to be on the safe side. But if they're under that age, they won't have been wormed because they'll be too young. Now, the other thing is to ask about is there a history of any health issues in the area? Have there been any avian influenza scares? Are there any known issues with red mite or northern fowl mite? And the likelihood is that the seller will say no, but you can do your research on the net and find out, just to be on the safe side. Now, it has to be said, it's highly unlikely that any seller of chickens will never, ever, ever have had something like either chicken lice, northern fowl mite or red mite on their site. What is important is there's no recent incidents of it, because these things are really hard to get rid of. So if there's a recent incident, it may be that they're still getting over it, and you want to be sure that what you're taking home has no instance of those pests on there to begin with. But once you've asked those questions, hopefully that should set your mind at rest. The final set of questions to ask is, what are the chickens used to at the moment? And mainly that's around food and drink. So are the chickens still on chick crumb? Are they eating growers pellets instead? Are they eating layers pellets? Ask advice on that, what you should get in that they're used to, even the brands that they're used to, so that the transition from where they are to where you're taking them to is less of a problem. And it's also useful to find out what type of feeder and what type of drinker they're used to. There are multiple different kinds out there. We have open feeders, we also have treadle feeders. And when our chickens get older, they're always in the treadle feeders. We only use open feeders when they're very, very young. But if your chickens have only ever used an open feeder and you want them to use a treadle feeder, you're going to have to teach them. So it's just a case of being prepared. And there's also multiple different types of drinker too. There might be an open drinker, it might be a refillable trough, it may be one of those nipple drinkers, but all of them are slightly different. And if your chicks are being brought somewhere and you have got a completely different type of feeder or drinker, you're going to have to teach them how to use the new type, and that's where they get food and water. But hopefully that's all the questions you will need to ask. So let's talk about payments, because this is normally a very tricky subject. And there's three ways you could be asked to pay. One could be when you pick the chickens up. The second could be a payment of a deposit in advance. Or finally, payment in full in advance. Now, none of these three actually indicate whether a seller is good or whether they're bad. It just indicates what their business model is or how they've been treated by buyers in the past. Now, for us, we do now ask for payment in full in advance. And that's because we have had buyers in the past who have committed to buying mainline chickens, but have rearranged dates, and have never actually turned up to pick up the chickens. And in the meantime, we could have sold them multiple times over. So by asking for payment in full in advance, we know that the buyer is serious. Now, for the buyer's benefit, we ask them to pay us via PayPal, which means that they have a means of recourse through the PayPal guarantee. And that's quite important because we do want to be honourable sellers. And actually what we do say to them as well, if on the day when they turn up and they're not happy with chickens once they've viewed them, absolutely they can have no quibble, money back straight away. And we will do it while they're here. But it has to be said, we have never had that. Every person we have been lucky enough to turn up to buy our chickens has absolutely loved them and gone away happy. Now I would say that, wouldn't I? But actually, it's true. They've all loved them. So you're on the day of purchase and you're going to your seller. So what do you need to take with you? Well, obviously you need to be able to get them home. So you need some kind of box. Now you could have something really posh like a proper poultry crate, but if you're only collecting chickens once in a while or once only, you don't need to go out and spend money on a poultry crate. So you may have something else. You might have a dog crate, you might have a dog carrier. All of those you can use very, very easily. Your final option is just a large cardboard box. That's more than enough, but make sure you put something absorbent in the bottom of every single carrier that you use, because they will poop. They absolutely will poop by the time you get home. So sawdust or more cardboard is absolutely fine. That will do the job. Now, the ideal thing when travelling is for your chickens to be in darkness, because when they're in darkness, they start to behave as if they're roosting and they settle down and become very, very quiet. It's unlikely that they will get upset if they're in darkness. If they're in a cardboard box with air holes, and if it is a cardboard box, please make sure there are air holes, they will be in darkness anyway because the top will be closed over. Now, if they're in a pet carrier or a poultry crate or in a dog crate, if you put them in the boot and put the boot cover over, that will be sufficient to keep them in darkness. But failing that, a light sheet which is not airtight, you want it to have air coming through, so nothing like wax cotton or anything like that, just a plain cotton sheet should be enough to keep them calm. Now, if you are putting them in the boot, there needs to really be a way of making sure that the box that you've got them in or the crate that you've got them in isn't going to be sliding around. So when you turn corners in the car, that they're not going to be sliding around in the boot. You want it to be in one place. So some bungee cords or some string, and just tie it down in some way in the boot. That's absolutely perfect. That essentially is all you need to take if you're traveling a short distance. If you're traveling a further distance and may need to stop, what you'll need to make sure is that they're not kept in a hot car. So if it's a hot day, make sure that you have someone in the car with the engine running and the air conditioning staying on, and the car isn't left to just heat up for even a short period of time. And you also want to make sure that there is some water available, not necessarily food, providing the journey is less than about 4 or 5 hours. Because if you think about it, when a chicken is roosting in their coop overnight, they don't have food and water, but they can do without water for only short period of time during the day. So I would always make sure, if the journey is more than 2 hours, that some kind of water is available on the journey. But that's all you need to take. So bare minimum, big cardboard box with air holes in it, small drinker and a little bit of food, you'll be fine. So you've selected your seller and you've turned up on site. So what are you looking for? Well, you're looking to see what you saw when you did all your research. So all of those photographs you looked at to see how the chickens were being kept. So the good, clean conditions or the free range environment. But basically you're looking for alert chickens kept in an environment which you believe is clean and you're happy with the health. Now, it may be that your chickens are actually separated out into a different viewing area to where they normally live, and we do that here, and that's basically because it's nicer for the chickens, because we lift them out at roosting time and then put them into dog carry cases in one of the barns. That means we're not chasing them around the field, which is upsetting for them and it's upsetting for us. However, we always bring buyers down to the field so they can view the environment. Now, they're outside the fence, but they can easily look in and see how the chickens are cared for. They can see that their plumage is good, that they are well cared for, that they're in good condition, and they've got plenty of room to run around. And that means our buyers are satisfied of the general health of the chickens which they're actually buying. And that's important as a buyer when you turn up on site. So make sure you can view where they were raised in the first place. The first thing to look for are good quality feathers. If a hen isn't preening herself, something is wrong. It could be that the conditions she's been kept in aren't conducive to keeping herself clean. It might be that she's ill, so the best thing to do is make sure that those feathers are in good condition. The next thing to check for is clear eyes and that there is no discharge from the mouth or nose or the eyes. If there are, it's possible that she's got some kind of illness or a problem, and you don't want to be taking that to your home. Next thing to check are the legs, and what you're looking for is the scales on the legs are flat to the skin. If they're raised in any way, they could have something called scaly leg mite, and the mite actually burrows underneath the scales and lifts them away from the leg. The next thing to check is actually the vent of the chicken, and this is their backside. And what you want it to be is nice and clean with no feces around it. If they have diarrhea, you will see that feces have dried onto their feathers. Now, it's possible if they've been in the carry case overnight that they have actually sat in something, but you can fairly easily differentiate between something that they've sat in and a longer term problem, because if it's dried and matted, it's been there a long time and there is a health issue going on there. The other thing that you want to check here is that there's no grey powdery residue around the feather shaft. So where the feather actually comes into the skin, if you see a brown, what looks like a grey powdery residue on that feather shaft, it's possible, in fact it's very likely, they have something called chicken lice. Now, chicken lice are actually quite hard to see on chicken, but you will see their eggs, and it's that grey powdery residue. The other thing that you're checking for when you check the vent, and I'll turn her around because that's not a lovely picture to be looking at. The other thing that you're looking for is any sign of creepy crawlies. Now, northern fowl mite will look like a little black mite which is running around that area, and the other thing is red mite, and red mite is obviously red and it will be running around too. Now, if you don't see them and you still want to take a further check, the other thing to check for is to turn your hen upside down, and they don't like this, so just bear with me because I'm going to do this gently to this young lady. And what you want to do is just check in the folds of the skin from the leg to the main body, but be very gentle, is whether you can see any movement there, because that area of skin is very, very warm, because the leg, the thigh, actually stays quite flush to the body, and clearly my little lady doesn't like this. So I'm going to turn her the right way up again. Hopefully that's given you all of the information to make the right decision and get the healthiest chickens for you and your family. If you have liked this content, take a moment and give me a thumbs up down below. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, hit subscribe and the bell icon, and you'll be notified of every new video as soon as it goes live. If you've got a question for me that hasn't been answered in this video, just pop it in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But for now, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.